Every time your app fetches the same data twice, it is wasting time. Caching stores results so future requests get an instant answer. Today, we trace every layer where caching happens and the strategies that make each one work correctly. Every request first asks the cache, "Do you already have this answer?" If yes, that result is returned immediately and the origin system is never touched. If no, the origin does the work, returns the result, and the cache stores a copy for next time. This hit or miss decision is the heartbeat of every caching strategy. Caching is not one thing in one place. It is a stack of 5 distinct layers. The browser caches on your device. A CDN caches at a nearby edge node. A reverse proxy like Nginx or Varnish caches before traffic even reaches your code. Your app holds hot data in memory. And the database engine caches its own query results. Each layer saves round trips to the one below it. When you request a page, the browser checks its local cache first. On a miss, it asks the nearest CDN edge node. On another miss, the request travels to the reverse proxy in front of your data center. Only if all 3 miss does the origin server run its logic, build a response, and send it back. Each layer on the return path stores a copy so the next request stops earlier. In the cache aside pattern, the application is fully in charge. It checks the cache before every read. On a hit, it returns the cached value directly. On a miss, it queries the database, takes the result, writes it into the cache for future requests, and then returns it to the caller. The application code decides what goes in the cache and when it expires. This is the most common pattern in practice. Read-through caching moves the database lookup logic out of your application and into the cache layer itself. Your code only ever calls the cache. When the cache has a miss, it automatically fetches from the database, populates itself, and returns the value. Your application never calls the database directly. This simplifies application code but requires a cache library or service that understands your data source. Write-through caching means every write goes to the cache and to the database in the same synchronous operation. The application writes to the cache immediately writes to the database, and only after both succeed does the write return success. Reads are always fast because the cache is always fresh. The trade-off is that writes are slower because they must wait for 2 stores to confirm. Write back, also called write behind, makes writes feel instant. The application writes only to the cache and gets an immediate success response. The cache holds the dirty data and flushes it to the database later in the background, usually in batches. Writes are extremely fast. The danger is that if the cache crashes before flushing, those writes are lost. This pattern suits high write workloads where occasional data loss is acceptable. Every cached value can carry a time to live, a TTL. When you write the entry, you declare how many seconds it should be considered valid. A timer counts down. When it reaches 0, the entry is either deleted immediately or marked stale, so the next request triggers a refresh. TTL is the simplest form of cache invalidation, and it is the default tool for data that changes on a predictable schedule. When data changes, you should not wait for a TTL to expire. Explicit invalidation means your code actively deletes or overwrites specific cache entries at the moment data changes. A user updates their profile, you delete that user's cache key immediately. You can also send purge requests to CDN edge nodes to remove stale content globally within seconds. Explicit invalidation gives you precision that TTL alone cannot provide. Stale-while-revalidate is a strategy where the cache serves the old value immediately, even after the TTL has expired, while simultaneously fetching a fresh version in the background. The client gets a fast response every time. The cache updates itself asynchronously. The next request gets the fresh value. This pattern eliminates the latency spike that would otherwise happen when a TTL expires and the first caller has to wait for the origin. When a server sends a response, it can include an e-tag header, a fingerprint of the content. The client stores both the content and the e-tag. Next time it needs that resource, it sends an if-none-match header containing the stored e-tag. The server compares it. If the content has not changed, the server replies with a 304 not modified and no body at all. The client reuses its cached copy. Bandwidth saved, latency cut. A cache stampede happens when a popular cache entry expires and dozens or hundreds of requests arrive at the same instant, all find a miss, and all race to recompute the same value simultaneously. The database gets hammered with duplicate work. The fix is a mutex or probabilistic early expiry. One request wins a lock and recomputes. The others either wait for the lock or receive a slightly stale value until the fresh result is stored. Caches have finite memory. When they are full and a new entry arrives, something must go. Least recently used eviction removes whichever entry was accessed the longest time ago. The cache maintains an ordering by last access time. The entry at the bottom of that list is the victim. LRU works well because data accessed recently is statistically more likely to be accessed again soon, which is true of most web workloads. Redis and Memcached are the two dominant in-memory cache stores. Both keep all data in RAM for microsecond reads and support distributed deployments, so many application instances share one cache. Redis offers richer data types like sorted sets and hashes, optional persistence to disk, and pub/sub messaging. Memcached is simpler and multi-threaded, making it efficient for purely ephemeral key-value caching at very high concurrency. Most teams today default to Redis. Databases themselves can cache query results. The cache key is typically the exact SQL text plus parameter values. If the same query runs again before the underlying table changes, the engine returns the cached result set without touching disk. Some databases do this internally. Many teams implement it at the application layer using Redis, storing serialized result sets with a TTL tied to how frequently that table is updated. A cache key must uniquely identify the response you want to store. If two requests differ in any meaningful way, they must produce different keys. Common dimensions to include are the resource path, query parameters, the authenticated user ID for personalized content, the accept language header for localized responses, and an app version number, so a deployment automatically busts all old entries. Poor key design causes cache collisions or missed sharing opportunities. Every caching decision is a dial between freshness and speed. Short TTLs mean users see up-to-date data, but cache hit rates drop and origin load rises. Long TTLs mean blazing fast responses, but users may see stale data for minutes or hours. The right setting depends on how often your data changes and how much stale data your users can tolerate. Immutable assets like hashed JavaScript bundles can be cached forever. User account data should have a very short TTL or use explicit invalidation. You now know every caching layer and every strategy. Next episode, we pull back and trace a single request through the entire stack we have built across this course, from your browser all the way to the database and back, watching DNS, TCP, TLS, HTTP, and caching all work together in one complete picture.